Welcome back. This is another episode of Emotional Nightmares. My name is Tyler.
I'm Nicole.
Bear with us. We changed the set around, so these lights are a little crazy, out of control. But on today's episode, we're going to dive deeper into perception. On, I think the last episode we just released, we talked about perception. And the one that we're going to release on Monday is all about red flags and about perception. So today we're going to dive a little bit into perception and what it is, what it means, and how it really shapes the reality of our life. I mean, everything boils down to it.
Yeah.
Right? So first off, what is your perception of it?
What's my perception of perception?
Yeah.
So perception is your favorite topic. Is your very absolute favorite.
It is.
I think mine is more comprehension, because there's a lot that goes into what builds our perception that is how we comprehend and understand things. Right? I mean, That's why, schools try to give you literacy. Doctors and healthcare professionals try to give you healthcare literacy. We tried to give people mental health literacy, And so I think when you think about, the philosophy of it, right? Creating the world that you live in, your perception of what that world is going to be is
Sorry, I'm caught up.
It's fine. It's
new
fine.
Set.
I built us a coffee table, so it's a club.
ADHD.
So I don't even remember what I was saying, but so I think that when you have a lack of comprehension or low comprehension in certain areas, right? So like social awareness, right? Language comprehension, attachment comprehension. What is your ability to understand the world around you and how that builds your perception? So it's so complex when you think about what perception is.
Yeah.
For me.
I mean, I think it's definitely a very complex situation, but everything we do in life is centered around your perception, your views, and your values of a situation, right? So what I value in a situation, I said this on the last episode, is I can't expect you to have that same value.
No, right.
So our perception, you see it every day, right? Arguments, every conflict, everything we have is based off of we perceive something to be happening a certain way. And a lot of that is a trauma response, right? So we had a situation happen. This was the outcome of the situation, so therefore it must be the same outcome, which is totally not real, right? So, because what it boils down to is I always, when I'm talking with, my guys and stuff in group therapy, I always talk about well, what's your definition of respect? Right? Because everybody has and they'll be well, respect is earned. And I'll be is it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, on that last episode.
Yeah, that's so ignorant. Yeah. Right? Is it earned? No. It's a given thing. And therefore, if I feel that that you have to earn my respect, now I'm in a bruised ego situation, right? So I think that perception, that even take it a step further, we talked about the relapse process, with drugs and alcohol, even, that a lot of that is that, when we had Chris on here and we were talking about grief and loss, again, it was his perception of how he handled the situation, so perception really shapes the reality of what it is. Like if you think positive, positive things happen. If you think
Sure.
negative, negative shit happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that, so yeah, I mean, you're right. Like perception is my favorite topic, because it's the one thing that I think that if we can change our perception and change the way we think, we can then change our views on the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel.
I mean, that's my favorite thing, when somebody started one way and then can come back and be like, I thought or felt or valued this, and then I learned more, and I realized that I was wrong, or I realized that that wasn't the whole truth, or my perception has ultimately changed. I mean, I love those people.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of vulnerability to essentially admit that you were wrong.
It's a big word.
I mean,
vulnerability.
Yeah, and that's probably one of my favorite topics. I mean, you have like mental health moguls who have made their careers out of teaching vulnerability or coaching on vulnerability. And it is just like the human experience's superpower, you know, because a lot of people, like you were saying, that ability to like let go, that ability to not have control, but ultimately, like, I think, and I'm nobody, but I think that your perception is ultimately created by how much you believe you have control over one thing or another. And your perception is actually probably one of the only things that you really do have control over. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
where a lot of the other
Absolutely.
things you don't really, you know. I learned this fun fact a while ago that you can tell how much a person struggles with control. And again, I'm nobody, so out of the thin blue sky, I could have pulled this. But you can tell how much somebody struggles with control based on if they'll get in an airplane. Because an airplane, like, you're not the pilot, you are very high up. You know, you got to do the whole gas mask first thing. Gas mask, you know what I mean. But yeah, it's a process, and to have that ultimate vulnerability of not being in control for however long your flight is, apparently that holds the telltale truth about somebody's ability to let things go.
I agree.
It's interesting.
I think too, like, man, like, you know, when you were talking, like, I'm thinking vulnerability, that is the perception, right? Is like, we struggle with vulnerability. Like, everybody struggles with it based off of the perception of, I mean, think about like growing up, right? Like I know for guys like that are listening or whatnot, like we always hear, men don't cry, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's bullshit, right? Like, you should have to cry. There
Right.
might be times, right? But like, that was so frowned upon at one point. Nowadays, it's not.
Yeah. You
Mental
still
health
see it.
is more talked about, but
Right.
it's still out there, right? So that perception, like that toxic perception, more or less, of like, well, men shouldn't do this, or like this shouldn't happen, and you shouldn't do this. So like, that makes people take a step back, and I don't want to talk about my feelings,
Right.
which also goes into, again, the perception of, one time I talked about my feelings and like somebody used that information to hurt me later
that's
down
a
the
big
road. So therefore, I don't want to do it again, because if I'm vulnerable, so that goes back into the perception. Because just because one person was a shitbag, you're expecting other people to be, you know, a scumbag as well too.
Yeah.
When it's really not that reality, right? So, I mean, it really is the shaping of our whole reality. Like,
Yeah.
how you live your day-to-day life. You know, like, you'll hear people, you know, my favorite thing with it, like, I'll always have my clients, I'll be like, well, how many of you, you know, like, I'll be like, how many of you are in a relationship? And then I'll be like, well, what about if your girlfriend's phone goes off at like 12 o'clock at night? And they'll be like, oh, we better not. Like,
Right.
Da, 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 da. And I'm like, but why?
We're bringing up all the stereotypical.
Yeah, right? Like, it's crazy, because then I'm like, but the reality of it all was it's okay for that to go off. That phone conversation isn't for you. Your perception is telling you that it's something evil, right? It's something bad. So we perceive it that way. So therefore we think every incident is that way. You know what I mean? That's why like this stuff is, I think perception is the most important avenue for any form of recovery, right? Not just the drugs and alcohol, which I know we're centered around, but like our mental health, body dysmorphia, right?
Oh, don't bring it up.
Body dysmorphia, right? Like that's perception, right? Like I know, and I've said this before. I don't know if it was on this show or another one, but I'm heavily covered in tattoos because of such thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, before I had all these tattoos, I'd look in the mirror and be like, ugh, I don't like this. No matter how much, you know, I would overwork out, I would eat different, like do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then like so my perception was like, this isn't, people would be like, oh, dude, like you're looking good. I'd be like, no, I'm not. Right. So like I'll cover it with a tattoo because now it looks better. And now I feel like I'm always wearing clothes, right? Yeah. And like, I don't think a lot of people understand that, like, that's where a lot of tattoos come from. Right. Right? Like, a lot of people will get them and be like, oh, I like the way this looks, right? Like, yeah, I like the artwork of it. But the reality of it is it goes a little bit deeper if we really dig deeper into it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Perception.
Yeah. I mean, so you're talking about that. And I'm thinking, when you have these people that are just so reactive, right? Why, like, what is the distress? Like, humans are interesting little creatures, aren't we? You know, when you think about, like, people's reaction and their distress tolerance skills, or even comprehending what distress tolerance skills are. I mean, it just seems like there is none because people cannot have the perception of being weak, have the perception of being vulnerable, have the perception of not being loyal, right? Because when we live that life, it's like homie best talk about his loyalty to me, you know, like it's all wrapped up in there. So,
which is funny, right? Because like our definitions are different, right? So, God, man, like that's the biggest conflict issue, even in my life, right? Like, where it boils down to, like, we both see something different, right? We're both seeing something, same thing, but we're seeing it in a different light. So, like, conflict arises, when in all reality, the message is the same, the outcome is probably the same, what we're looking at is the same thing. But like we'll have conflict in there because it's like, well, no, like it should be this or it should be that. You know what I mean? Like all conflicts are miscommunication and perception. Yeah. Right? Like any argument I've ever had, I promise you, was because of that, right? And because, like, let's be honest, it's because sometimes you don't want to step back and say, maybe I'm wrong. Right? Where, man, life is a lot easier when I understand, like, man, I'm not right all the time. I'm wrong a lot.
I appreciate being wrong more often than I appreciate being right. When somebody tells me I'm right, I'm like, I don't believe it. Don't, just whatever thought that is that thinks that you think I'm right, get rid of it right now. Like, do your own research.
I think I like the idea of when it's, when I am wrong, right? Well, I like the idea of knowing I'm wrong, right? Yeah. Where I can say, like, even now, like, I might be wrong, right? Where I can say that, and like, I think it's interesting to listen to other people's viewpoints on things. And I'll say to them, like, okay, but why do you believe that? Like, show me, right? And then being open-minded enough to listen to why, because maybe they are right? I mean, I know.
That's my favorite saying. Maybe you're right.
I know you're real big into politics.
Oh, God. You don't like it when I talk about it.
I know. I hate politics. Right?
I have a short amount of time to take over the world. I have to learn things.
It ain't going to be on political terms. But, like, I hate the politics stuff, right? And I hate politics because, like, politics and religion, everybody wants to argue and fight over.
I know.
Where it's just like, man, can we all just agree? It don't matter what side of the fence you fall on.
Correct.
Right? With this stupid two-party system we have.
Correct.
Right? Don't matter what part of the fence we fall on, our country's fucked. Right?
Oh, yeah.
We're all fucked.
But it's
right?
the systems. I mean, you and I know that.
So that's the thing, right? It's the system.
Right.
Right? Our system is broken. I'm glad that you say that, right? Because our system has been broken.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not that it's, and like we'll always talk about like we should fix things. Mm-hmm. But my perception, right? Like let's look at, I didn't want to do this right now.
I love this.
I wanted to have your guest come on. We're going to have a guest come on where we're going to talk more into this.
Oh, God. I don't know where you're leading me.
But like,
I'm nervous.
So like as a kid, right? As a juvenile, our perception really, like everybody's perception was in them times, send them to this juvenile place.
Are you talking about my very best Irene?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, shout out to my friend Irene because she's a doll baby.
But like back in them times, like everybody would say, okay, well, like these kids are bad kids and send them away. Nobody ever, and I've said this a million times, everybody would always say, what's wrong with you? Correct. Nobody stopped to say, hey, what happened to you? I mean, why are you reacting this way, right? So,
and that's what people say about my son. Like, you know, even my daughter who's really struggling right now, and like we can't get her in for an evaluation because wait times for these things are so long, right? And we'll be in public and she'll literally be eating her shoe and, you know, who knows what else, spinning in a circle on one foot at the same time.
Right.
And people are like, what's wrong with your kid? And it's like, what's wrong with you, my Holmes? Like, what's wrong?
That's why, like I had just learned. Well, hold on. Let me go back so I don't get off topic.
This is one of our favorite topics
because I had just learned about this puzzle piece, and I'm gonna go on a tangent about that.
Yes.
Because I hate that now that I understand it. So
the autism puzzle piece.
We'll get that in a minute. So anyway, so like the perception, right? So like when I was a kid, right? Like I went to a juvenile detention center here in this local area.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm in this center, and like. I remember at least the first week I was there, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know what to do, right? And at this time, like, you know, like I'm doing these alternative school stuff and everything, but I'm at this juvenile detention center and I don't really know what to do. And I'm just kind of like, I'm a kid, man. Like, explain to me what you want me to do, right?
Right.
I dropped a pencil, right? So I'm like, hey, can you give me my pencil? To the kid in front of me, right? This drill instructor ran across the room, grabbed me by the head, slammed my head through the wall, right?
That's beautiful.
How the hell was that teaching any child to do anything? All that taught me, and I remember being there, it was like 3-4 years in, where I'm like, dude, the only thing this juvenile the only thing that you have taught me is how to run faster, how to be stronger, and like now like I'm over it, right? And like I ended up getting into like a couple restraints, and that day I was just having a bad day, right? But like
it's another one of my favorite topics, child restraints.
But why, right? Like that's the other thing. So I remember
laws are so backwards.
I have this day, right? 4 or 5 restraints I'm in. Finally, this one drill instructor, Ludwig was his last name.
Oh,
right?
Boy.
I love him. Love him to death.
Oh, great. Okay.
He was the only one, him and there was a guy, Staff Sergeant Lucas, right? So these two come over and they sat down and they're like, dude, why are we doing this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's a day. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm over it, right?
Right.
They didn't try to restrain me. They didn't fight with me. In fact, they took me over to the chow hall so we could eat, right?
That's right.
And like
food fixes nearly everything.
Absolutely, right? So they sat down and like we talked about why I'm really struggling. And there was a deeper issue, right? It was an issue like I was having problems with, I wanted to see my mom, like bigger issue. And like, I was just pissed. And like, finally it was, what was wrong? Right. So now I look at the system now. How in the hell does anybody think this is working?
Mixed reviews. I have so many. You find a diamond in the rough every now and again. So the restrictions that I
beat up your child and not work.
Humans are both my favorite and my least favorite animals. I believe that I am just from outer space, and I am an alien, and that's why I don't fit in mostly. But like the things that I learn in crisis training for adults, the things that we learn about laws and behaviors and restrictions on what we can do as inpatient mental health professionals, right?
Yeah.
Putting our hands on somebody. I better have a good reason. And there's been a ton of times where I've just kind of let people punch me because like so many different feelings. Like there was one person that ended up hitting me and I was like, you know what? They know me. They feel comfortable with me because they are not in a correct psychological state of mind. And like the fact that they could somehow bring a loose association to me to get that close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now I made some mistakes to allow them to get so close, but like the police come to talk to you afterwards, right? Inpatient mental health, the police come talk to you afterwards. Would you like to file charges? The answer is no, not never. No, not ever.
Yeah,
you know? Would you? Well, there are some times where I'm like, yeah, like we had like a couple years back, we had a terrible incident on the unit where COVID had shut down, so the jails had shut down, and they didn't know what to do with some people, so they brought a guy in who was already being arrested on attempted murder, should have never landed on our unit, ended up like really getting behind and strangling somebody.
Well,
and it was not cool.
I mean, that's a little different.
It's a little different. But I mean, like those are the things that So I gotta have a good reason, and 90% of the time, it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me, and I don't care what you want to call me either. You call me something that's not my name, great. Yeah, I don't care. You know what I mean? Because I'm here in that situation to be a professional. And then that's my value that I have, though. Like, that's the perception that I have is, like, in those moments, I'm there for that person, right? I have the ability, right, thank God or whoever you believe in, that I even have that ability. The amount of drugs that I put into my system or mixed together or situations I put myself in, I mean, like, I'm honestly lucky to even be sitting here.
I mean, give or take, like, there's been situations where working in this field where I haven't reacted the best, right?
Well, of course, we're still human.
Yeah. Where it's like, I've had, it's a combination of things, right? Because unfortunately, we're expected when I go to work, leave your personal life at home.
Correct.
Well, when everything's blowing up in your personal life, and I'm now trying to help you fix your life.
Right.
And you're yelling, and I've had a guy yell at me finally. I'm like, dude, fuck this. It's unprofessional, right? And
I meet them where they're at. If they're cussing, I'm cussing.
You know what? Like, I apologize. Like, I shouldn't. There are times where, like, I'll have to step back and be like, you know what? I apologize. Because I'm not the one that should be talking to you like this.
Right.
Because I do believe so heavily in the what happened to you. Right? Not what's wrong with you, what happened to you. And it's a fantastic book, too, if you ever read it. There's a book, Oprah and Some Doctor.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's actually a really good book. You should read it. So
put it on my Amazon list.
And that's the name of it, is What Happened to You. And they talk about this, is like asking people that, because that shapes your reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I used to work, I worked with some human trafficking victims before.
Yikes. It's rough.
No, it was not nice. It was awful. It was awful. Right? But it gave me a new light on things, right?
Yeah.
But like their perception, right, is they're going to be harmed because of like certain things, right?
Correct.
So you take like sex abuse victims, and maybe the human trafficking one's a little extreme, but just the average normal sex abuse victim, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of females have to feel this, unfortunately, where, you know, if you go to Walmart late at night, you have to worry about where you park your car,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because your perception of somebody could grab me
Yeah.
and take me, or somebody could do. In fact, there's a whole channel,
Yeah.
right? The ID channel is dedicated purely to this, right? Purely to you should fear this as a woman, right? Like, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because like you and I are not gonna have the same perception, right? Where like late at night, you know, if I want to walk over to Sheets, I'm just gonna walk up to Sheets, right? I don't really care what time of night it is, because that doesn't bother me.
Right.
Where, you know, if I tell my girlfriend like, "Hey, can you walk up to Sheets?" She's gonna be like, "No, like it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm not doing that. Like
Right.
I'll drive up, right?" Different perception, right? Because she has to worry about different kinds of dangers that I don't. Vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to. There's not some dangers that you don't.
Right.
That you have that I have to worry about.
Right.
So like again, like that's all of our perception on how we do things, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I keep drinking water out of this water bottle with the straw. My perception is I don't want people to watch this and next thing you know they're gonna be thinking we're P. Diddy over here.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. I mean, is it R. Kelly you're looking for?
No,
I don't know.
P. Diddy.
I'm not up to date on all the P. Diddy shenanigans. I really,
I don't know, but those memes are killing me.
I know, and I'm interested. I can't wait for that. I'm still on Quiet on the Set right now. Speaking of ID Network, I'm on Quiet on the Set right now, and when I move on to P. Diddy, I'll let you know. But I mean, talk about childhood trauma. I mean,
So, puzzle piece.
oh yeah.
Right.
Just
So-
like preface, know that I somewhat already know about this, and I ultimately do not have anything to do with this organization. Yikes.
That's a perception.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something I just learned.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, like, I had just learned this is like, I used to think that, like, yo, puzzle piece, like, it's a missing piece, like, it's cool. And then, like, it was brought to my attention by somebody. They were like, why am I a missing piece?
Mm-hmm.
What's missing? Why am I broken?
Yep.
I'm not missing a piece. And I'm like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, that's right. And like looking at that, because this is the month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it was what, Autism Day or month or something.
Yeah, the other day.
And like looking at that, I was like, wow, like that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so like our perception, like my perception changed on that, because I used to look at that organization like we should support them, like that's a good organization. And then like, and again, not being affected by it, I never really looked into it. So once it was brought to my attention, like boom, and then I look into it and I'm like, oh, these are the people that are saying like, you know.
Yeah, people could do their own research here.
Like,
Yeah.
some crazy stuff that I'm like, yo, I'm good. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing that no more.
Right.
So like, that's how perception should work, though.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
It's
and
like you can feel things.
Yeah.
Right. And like we say all the time, your feelings aren't real.
Right.
Right. Your feelings are based off of perception. That's why they're not real. They're valid, just not real.
Right.
Right. And sometimes it's not even about that. You just want to feel heard. Right.
Absolutely.
So.
What's the need and what's the want? That's how you break it down each time. What's the need? What's the want? Is it security and belonging? It usually is. You know.
Ain't that big.
But like, gosh, I remember. Okay.
I just want to. Every time I take a sip of this,
I'm gonna Google it as soon as we're done here. You're gonna have to tell me when we stop recording.
It's crazy.
I
crazy.
don't know you said that.
Pause.
When I got sober, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember each of the most impactful, I keep hitting this, employees that helped me. Like, I remember who was at the hospital with me.
Fact.
You know, like, I remember waking up because I was just kind of dropped outside the ER. And I remember, like, coming to in a med detox bed at Mercy Hospital. Mm-hmm. And there was this same psych guy there. And he was like, oh, Nicole, you're being rough right now. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, he's actually changing my diaper for me right now because I'm so out of it. I have so many other chemicals inside me from them trying to help me through this. I can't get out of this.
Detox was always fun.
Right? I can't get out of this bed. I'm in a physical hospital. Like, and that's what made it probably nicer than any other time is because I was in a hospital where, like, you know how it is at detox rehabs, which I appreciate that process, right? Like, make it hurt a little bit. You got to be uncomfortable a little bit for any sort of change to happen. So, like, I'm fine with how rehabs do it, honestly. I know,
We're not doing that no more now. Like, that's bullshit. I hate it, right? Because, like, nowadays, like, I remember sitting in detox, shitting, pissing, and puking on myself.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
Right?
Right?
And you know, nurses around in there.
Now.
You know, comfort meds, really.
And, yeah, comfort meds. Now it's like we baby them, right? And it's like, you know, oh, here's a blanket. Here's this. You know, I remember.
I'm going to give them a warm blanket.
Yeah, I remember sitting here, like, pissing and shitting on myself.
Literally
and, like,
vomiting in my hair.
I'm like, I need to take a shower.
Yeah.
And, like, the nurse just looked at me and she said, why? You're just going to keep doing it. She's like, just go sweat it out. You'll be fine. You can shower when you're done.
Did you get sober at Turning Point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm like, that story sounds familiar.
I was like, whatever. And I went and I did. I just curled up in the bed.
Right.
And stuff. The only thing I like about it now is we have a detox for meth, right? There never used to be one because
so different.
Like, you're not physically detoxing from it.
But the psychological damages are things that I have never seen before.
You need to go to bed, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's cool. It's like now we have the detox for, all right, man, come go to bed, right? Because, like, man, that shit's really killing people.
Honestly, I never touched it, and I'm very thankful for that.
Oh, boy,
I've just always been so hyper, and I'm that person that's like, what's wrong with you? Yeah. You're a bad kid. Can't you act like a good girl? You know, like that whole thing. That was me. Sit down, be quiet, stop touching. That was me. And so when meth was introduced to me, I was like, nope, don't want that feeling. That doesn't sound like something that I need.
Oh, man,
I think I need the opposite of that.
Yeah, I went off to the races. But, like, I didn't have an impulse control, right? Because I think that's another thing with a lot of this is, like, a lack of impulse.
Or an overaction of impulse.
I have a friend of mine that often reminds me of the times that we were in school because I didn't really go to school that long.
Sure.
Before I was shipped out of there. But, you know, he reminds me of, like, I remember, like, you just jumped out of the back of the bus one day. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, why would you do that? And I'm like, I don't know, man.
Sounds like something.
Like, I was sitting there with my cousin and my Cody, he's passed away now. And Cody was like, bro, just jump out of the back. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Right? Because the bus driver was like, I'm going to turn around. Cody's like, dude, just jump out the back. Okay. Right? And like that lack of impulse, right? I just did shit without thinking. And I think that that's where a lot of our addictions come from.
Yeah.
And perceptions, right? The perceptions of things, like when we just do shit and it gets us hemmed up even worse than where we were.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, like, so I got sober, right? And the people were wonderful at Mercy.
I'm burning.
I mean, honestly. But then I went to Turning Point, right? And so I think I spent like 112 days at Turning Point that last time. And I remember, like, when you go into rehab, you're trying to, like, soup yourself up. You're trying to be, like, you try to fit in the best you know how to do. And we're all just strung out peacocks. So, you know. So I was doing my things, and I remember Miss Jeannie, And so if you've ever been to Turning Point and had the pleasure of meeting Miss Jeannie, I mean, I think at the time that I was in Turning Point, she was 89 years old, maybe.
Yeah, the alligator.
Oh, my God. Yeah, well, for me, it was a boom, chicka boom.
Oh, yeah.
And if you didn't boom, chicka boom, you were boom hitting the street. She didn't give not two shits about you.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I love it. Well, she heard me running my mouth, and I would always wear this, like, crazy makeup and wild clothing, mostly that I stole because, like, that's, because I was homeless before I got in there. And she was like, look at you with your makeup. You look like you're going to a drag show. You're right. Right. She's like, you spent 2.5 hours doing your makeup. It's community meeting. You are still in your pajamas. So it's going to take you even more time to put on those absolutely ridiculous clothes that you brought with you to this rehab. And I was like my jaw had just, like, no one had ever spoken to me like that before.
Yeah.
And so I'm standing up. Everybody's kind of looking at me now because she's very, and silently, like, and so what do you, very therapeutic voice. And Miss Bev was there, which was another, like, huge impact on me, and Carrie. And, I just, like, my jaw was open, and she was like, everybody, Nicole, as you probably know from her announcing, has been to 15 rehabs before this one. And so, Nicole, since you would like attention, we would like to know what is going to make number 16 different. Go ahead and enlighten us. And I was like, Meh. And I remember just staring at her because, like, embarrassment is one of my biggest uncomfortabilities. And so I'm, oh, gosh. It's just so embarrassing. Like, I'm, like, starting to cry, and she's like, oh, does this bother you? Because I've spilled more heroin on the ground than you've probably ever seen in your life, and I'm here to tell you that you're not important. And I was like, oh, God. And I cried I cried so long.
Did that give you motivation?
No.
I remember Marty did that to me.
It humbled me.
Oh, man. Marty said those same words to me, but with alcohol. Right?
Yeah.
Because Marty was like, dude, I spilled more alcohol than you drank. Because I got sober young, right?
Yeah.
I did the same thing you did. And I was like, yeah, go fuck yourself. Right? I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Right? And I remember Marty just started laughing at me. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, I'm just a good alcoholic. I didn't spill mine.
Oh,
right?
damn.
And, like, I'm coming up with these little comebacks,
yeah.
right? And and I told him one time, I said, well, you know what, Marty? I said, if you wanted to spill your alcohol, you would have got sober quicker, too, sooner than you did. He just smiled at me, and he said, someday you might get sober in spite of yourself. He's like, he's like, but, for now, he's like, you're going fucking long term. Have a good day. And I was like, this guy, right? But, man, yeah, Marty was the impact in my life.
Yeah.
I hear Pickle's trying to come through the door.
He does. I would like him to live in here. I'm sad that he's not in here anymore. He was my homie.
Yeah. Which, oddly enough, listen, if you guys are listening, we're like 38 minutes into this, so if you're still listening, we just got a bird, and you can hear him, right? I can hear him. So that would be Pablo.
He deserves his own TikTok. I think that you should. I was telling Leah, you should decorate his cage in like jailhouse type of aesthetic, and get him a little hat, and we'll start him a little Instagram # free Pablo.
I love that his name's Pablo. Right?
I love that.
But yeah, so that's just Pablo, which the cat's not too happy that he's here, so he's trying to come through the door.
We've invaded his space.
Yeah, I figure we might as well announce the noises so people know.
I don't know.
Nobody's
if
ever
be able
questioned,
to hear it.
but
It's
whatever.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but with that being said, though, it is 38 minutes long. We're going to try to keep these one-on-ones short. And to be honest with you, all I'm going to do is go change my clothes, and we're going to record another one.
I think that we should really go back to that system conversation that we were having, because it is my favorite topic.
Put it on your note card.
I have lots of things on my note card, and
Put it on your note card.
I didn't talk about any of these things. I was so organized.
Well, let me go change my clothes, and we'll record another one, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey man, listen, I hope that you guys enjoy the set that we're doing here. I got new couches coming, so before anybody the same chairs, right? Like I got new chairs.
I love these chairs. But I don't at the
They came
same
from my
time.
mom's winery.
Okay, I really
She
liked
used
it
to have
better.
a winery, and I have no idea why she had this. And
I believe in my brain, and you can't take it away from me because it's my perception. So that they came from a rehab, and
Sure.
they're rehab chairs.
sure,
That fits our aesthetic a little better.
but we got some
I'm so
purple
excited.
chairs coming.
Yeah.
So hopefully this background and hopefully the sounds better. We really didn't. We did a half-ass sound
We're
check.
doing our very best that we can.
Yeah, these lights are crazy though. I feel like I got sunburnt.
You're cooking me. I'm Irish.
It is 10 times hotter in here than it is out there.
My hair's just gonna poof turn red again.
But yeah, man. So as always, though, as always, we only got 3 episodes in. But as always, listen, you could have been anywhere in the world today, and you chose to continue to be here with us.
Yeah.
Greatly appreciate you. The support is crazy. Like every
I can't
time
believe it.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Right now, every time I look, it's insane. Right? I didn't know if we would get 100 subscribers, let alone subscribers, right?
Subscribers.
Let alone I think we're at like 1,300.
Yeah.
The videos are crazy. So, listen, man, I don't know.
I
what's
didn't
going
have a
on.
lot of faith in us, honestly. So I appreciate
I
everybody.
believe in us, but I know that we are absolutely nothing if nobody watches.
Absolutely.
Right? So I agree. Like
share,
as
subscribe.
always, you'll hear me say, could have been anywhere in the world today, but you chose to be here with us, and I appreciate you more than anything for continuing to stay here. Like I said, when it's just a me and Nicole episode and not an interview episode, we are going to keep these below 45 minutes.
We're going to
try our hardest.
We pay for airtime, so.
Do we?
We do.
Who are we paying?
The RSS people.
Oh. I didn't know that.
That's how podcasts work.
Yeah, I'm just out here just
You're living your best dream.
randomly talking. I didn't know that we was
fine.
paying shit. Okay. So, yeah. So I guess we're definitely going to cut it down. So, anyway, like us, subscribe to us, share it,
Keep happy hour happy.
Get us a sponsor.
We are
need some sponsors.
currently accepting applications to
We
sponsorship.
need some sponsors. But yeah, man. So I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.
Keep happy hour happy. Happy you exist.
Thank you for watching.